everyone, and welcome to Women's Health Tech Wednesdays. I am your host, Nina Joshi, and today I am very excited about our guest, Shabnam. But before we jump into an amazing discussion, just wanted to provide some quick updates. We have our Breakthrough Innovator Challenge coming up throughout this month, and we have the applications that are open through May 12th. So if you're interested, all that information is in the chat. We also have our Digital Health Symposium for the month on March 30th with some really great speakers. So make sure that you check that out. And then we also have our Breakthrough Board applications open. If you are interested in joining, scan the QR code for more information. And so with that, we'd like to formally bring on our guest, Shabnam Eghbali, the co-founder of Theia. As you know, we love questions here at Women's Health Tech Wednesdays. So if you have any for Shabnam during our conversation, please feel free to pop them in the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, and I will make sure that we get to it. So with that, we'd like to formally bring on our guest. Thank you so much for being here, Shabnam.
Thank you for having me. I feel very honored to be here.
Well, we're very excited to have you on, and would love if maybe we just kick things off by learning a little bit more about you, your journey, your background.
Definitely. So I am originally from San Diego, born and raised in Southern California. I made my way to the East Coast for undergrad. I went to the University of Pennsylvania. And there I was in a joint degree program called the Bachelor of Life Sciences and Management program. So I studied both biology and finance there. And it was really there that I became enamored by healthcare and biotech and medicine. And from my sophomore year of college, I've really been involved in the biotech industry, both on the science and the business sides. Between undergrad and medical school, I worked in biotech mergers and acquisitions at Centerview in San Francisco, and then decided I really found myself wanting to be on the other side of the table in the shoes of the biotech executives. And so I felt that I needed to enhance my clinical and scientific training. And so that's what led me to medical school. So I am in my fourth year of medical school at Weill Cornell in New York City. I'm gearing up for residency, and I'll find out on Friday where I match. But throughout this whole journey, I was interfaced with many different positions that were very male dominated. And I didn't see people like myself in positions of leadership. And so I really wanted I, as well as my colleagues, really wanted to form a network of early career women interested in healthcare and healthcare entrepreneurship. And that was the genesis of Theia, which I'm sure we'll get more into. But that at a high level is my background and journey to where I am today.
That's amazing. And yeah, I definitely, that's a great segue into Theia, because I would love to learn more, but I love that, it seemed like you kind of got to yourself wear a couple of different hats kind of within the healthcare or biotech realm, but also kind of got to see all the different, positions and the different ways in which health can be influenced. And you saw that there was definitely a need kind of in that space. And so I would love if you could share a little bit more about what Theia is and really, what was that aha moment for you where you kind of decided that the best way that I can, solve this gap that you were seeing with not a lot of representation in positions of leadership through a nonprofit?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So so the origins of Theia. First, I'll say what Theia is, and then what the origins were. Yes. So Theia is a 501c3 nonprofit, and our mission is to empower women to use entrepreneurship as a vehicle for change in healthcare. So that's our official mission statement. And so we do this through a few different ways, and I can get into more details about them later. But we have this very vibrant community of over 500 women across the nation. And many of them are female entrepreneurs, investors, thought leaders. So we help facilitate in-person meetups, as well as also online connections through our Slack group. We also have a mentorship program, the Ask Me Anything session called Agora that also helps engage members of the community. And then we collaborate with other female focused organizations like Redesign Health to have like ideation workshops, et cetera. So that's one offering. We also have a podcast that showcases the stories of female entrepreneurs and investors and their overall thoughts on the spaces that they're operating in. And then finally, we have Your Path, which is our efforts to democratize the process of company building. And it's we have a wonderful content team that's put together this framework for company building, and it's been reviewed and edited by entrepreneurs and investors in our community. So we released the first module. It's on our website. You want to check it out. So these are all of our offerings, but with the central goal of having a central place for early career women to learn from each other, to network, and really with the goal of, in the next generation, we see more women at the helm of companies, more women founding companies and investing in companies that are really changing healthcare. Now, where this all started is, so back in the spring of 2020, I reconnected with a few of my colleagues from Penn, Suman Ketpal and Irene Park. We were all part of the same program at Penn. And we were reflecting on our experiences within the healthcare space. I initially had been in finance. Irene had been in consulting, and Suman in medicine. And so our some of the common themes among our experiences, as I alluded to before, is women are underrepresented, and when they are in positions of influence, they're often undermined compared to their male counterparts. And so that was one thing that we noticed. Another is that we didn't know off the top of our heads any networks that we could tap into with other early career women that are trying to figure things out. I mean, there are many networks and wonderful networks out there, like Women in Bio, that are great for mid-career women, but not for us. And so that's really what led us to form this organization. And it took a few months for us to figure out what that would look like. What did we want to do? And went through a lot of trial and error until we solidified what our offerings were. Mind you, like we all had our daytime jobs. And so this is a passion. This is the passion project at the end of the day. It's not a full-time job. So we had to make sure that we could also execute on what we wanted to do, because there are many things we wanted to do, but we had to be realistic in what we can do.
Definitely. No, I mean, it seems like with all the different offerings that you had kind of mentioned, and would love to kind of dive into a couple of them, that it seems like a very robust platform, especially to develop something when you do have a full-time job is pretty incredible. One of the things that
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you had mentioned something, I think it seems like it's kind of new. You have your first module, this framework. Would love if you could share a little bit more about, what the impact you're hoping that this tool, this modules will be able to kind of serve for your members, and then also kind of how you went about developing something like this.
Well, we have a wonderful content team that is led by Louisa Perez. She's a third-year medical student at Weill Cornell, and she, as well as like Anna Kroner, Nikita Gupta, and Amy Chen, they've really put in a lot of time and effort into tapping into previous conversations that we've had on our podcast with entrepreneurs and investors, and gleaning from those key lessons that can be applied to the 5 different modules that we have set up. And each of these modules essentially captures key aspects of the company building process. So module 1 has to do with finding that idea, and like identifying the problem and creating the idea and solution for that problem, and then taking us all the way to the actual launch of the company. So they've put in a tremendous amount of work into this over the past few years. And so the module not only has anecdotes but also provides worksheets and ways to help streamline the brainstorming process, at least like for module 1. That's the way that it's structured. So we're hoping that those that are thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, or have that itch, can at least find have a place where there's a structured way to brainstorm. So we're hoping that just some people can use it that way. We're also hoping that tech transfer offices and academic institutions can direct their students and faculty members to this resource as a way to kind of kickstart the brainstorming process. And so I think that's like probably one of the, at least at this point, what we're hoping is how people can use this resource. And then we're hoping to hear back from people in terms of how this resource has helped them. And we're always looking to modify and to improve it.
Absolutely. And can I just say, I love how the genesis of this was really just, mining the information that was already available on podcasts and kind of reframing it in a way that is very actionable. Because I think, and I'm saying this as someone who is hosting these webinars, that there's so much rich information. So I love that you're kind of able to take all of that and really distill it in a way that is very actionable. So kudos to that. I think that's awesome.
Thank you. Yes.
I also wanted to talk to you about Agora, which is your mentorship platform. Why was it really important for you to kind of develop something like this, within your offerings? What are some of the benefits that you see from, mentorship, especially when you're in that early career phase of your life?
So with Agora, so with mentorship as a whole, we recognize that time is limited, and that while we would love to have everyone participate in one-on-one mentorship, it can be really hard and really taxing. And so keeping that in mind, we approach it as more of an ask me anything type session, where it's beneficial for both the mentor and the mentee to have these informal, open, frank conversations, but also keeping in mind that it can be very hard to keep up a longitudinal relationship. So that's what the Agora program is meant to do. Agora being the Greek word for a meeting place, and so everyone congregating together. And so in the COVID era, this was happening in Zoom, but we're transitioning to actual formal in-person Agora sessions. But it was really meant for everyone to come together and just have a very organic conversation, kind of like what we're having here. Is just kind of spitballing and having the conversation kind of go in every which way direction. And I think many folks have benefited from these conversations in terms of getting new jobs, joining our community, or just walking away with just a new way to look at life. At least I have from some of these conversations in terms of how to look at failure and embrace failure. Some of our Agora guests have talked about that. But another thing I want to add, and this actually came from one of our Agora guests, is that we always talk about mentorship, but I think sponsorship is a much bigger thing that we need to really embrace, in terms of, it's great to give advice to one another, but to really get more women in front of people in positions of influence is if we recommend each other, if we sponsor each other. I think advocating that is the biggest thing. And that's what we're trying to do with Theia, is if we establish that network, we get people to talk to each other, they know, okay, if I can recommend this person for this position or to this investor because they're top of mind, because I know them, because they're in their network. That's how men have been doing it for so long. So that's what we need to do.
I absolutely agree with you. And I think being able to have people in your corner that know your skill sets, that, you've built some kind of rapport with through these shared interests and community. I mean, I think that is such an invaluable way to, like, not only advance for yourself, but bring people up with you. So I love that was kind of a philosophy that you really wanted to ingrain with this type of platform. And I also think too, when it comes to finding mentors when you're a little bit earlier in your career, that can seem like a very daunting task.
Oh, yes.
Finding a mentor. So this seems like a nice, easy step one to being able to do that, kind of getting your feet wet, talking to people.
Exactly, 100%. You capture that very well.
Thank you. One of the things that, you were mentioning really with the impact of Theia is this, idea of entrepreneurship as kind of the vehicle for influence and for change. Would love if you could expand a little bit more on that. What is the benefit that you kind of see in entrepreneurship as being the way that we collectively can, be in positions of leadership, be able to drive change on a larger scale?
That's a great question. I would say being in entrepreneurship gives you the freedom and the creativity to leverage your skills and affect change that way without the confines of the bureaucracy within within an organization. And so I think that would probably be the best way to,
no, I love it.
to describe it.
Definitely. It's kind of like if the current system doesn't work, you make your own way of being
Exactly.
I love that. No, it's short and sweet. I love it. One of the other things, I don't know, we were kind of talking about this before we went live, was really around community. And I think, you just described it, how the importance of network and having people kind of in that support system. But as we are kind of, transitioning to more and more in person, I know you all are starting to do in-person events this year. I'm just curious, for someone that has kind of seen both ends of it, have you seen any difference, or, if you could compare how we as a network kind of interact virtually versus in person, is there any difference?
Oh, in person, it feels so much more organic. You try to simulate that on Zoom, and we try to do that with Agora, but at the end of the day, the same type of back and forth it's a little harder to have that on Zoom. Maybe like one-on-one it's fine, but when you have multiple people, it ends up being like a panel type of discussion
Right.
rather than just kind of like bouncing ideas off each other. I think in person it's much easier to do that, because you also are able to read that person's body language and kind of respond to that as well. It's just incredibly difficult to do that in person, I think, but on Zoom. But one of the benefits of being able to do it virtually is opening it up to a much wider audience. And so when our community consists of folks across the US, and if we have a guest that's based in New York, for example, or in Boston, but folks in California want to listen in, they feel a little excluded. So, but the Zoom platform definitely allows for much more fair participation and much wider audience.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like it's going to be going forward. You kind of do both, so that you have the accessibility of a work, but you have some of the magic of being able to see each other in real life.
Exactly.
Well, I actually wanted to talk to you a little bit more, just as yourself, as you've kind of created this nonprofit. What was kind of the journey for that? And I'm especially interested, maybe for those who are listening that are interested in kind of starting their own potential nonprofit, what kind of made you want to go down the nonprofit route specifically? And tell you a little bit more about like the genesis of that kind of component, and maybe some of the early days of Theia.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely talked a lot and toyed with the structure of the organization. We also talked about having a venture arm to it, and actually, and like an angel and venture investing arm. And I mean, that's not totally out of the question, but then we were thinking about, okay, if we wanted to do for profit, like what kind of products we would. So like we toyed with a lot of different structures, but at the end of the day, we recognize like what our bandwidth is,
Yeah, that's a
and
good
then
question to ask.
and also ultimately what we were trying to accomplish for ourselves and for all the other stakeholders. And at the end, we ask each other, we as in like my co-founders and I, we asked each other, okay, like just use like one word to describe what you're hoping to gain. And network was the biggest thing, that biggest commonality amongst us. And so a for-profit structure, anything like that, didn't really make sense in order to build a large network. That's ultimately what we're trying to accomplish. And having a nonprofit structure to it, I think it quite frankly legitimizes the efforts that we're doing. And so that's one of the reasons why we went down that route. We looked at all the different bylaws and rules and regulations for New York and just checked off all those boxes. But at the end, it's not too difficult. It required like a little bit of heavy lifting at the beginning, but after that, it's pretty smooth sailing. I would say one of the biggest hurdles that we faced is funding. And so my co-founders and I have been bootstrapping it, but in terms of, it's really just like some of the back end costs in terms of like website and like domain name and all, which is, it's a nominal cost, but really what our hope is that we're able to actually sponsor and pay for a lot of these in-person meetups that are happening in each city. And raising funds has been a little difficult on that front. And we're just limited in terms of our bandwidth of finding sponsors, like large like organizations that want. And so that's for us, like a future direction is partnering with organizations and gaining the funds so that we're able to fund more of these events instead of relying on community members to pay for things themselves.
Absolutely. No, I think that's a great like next step. And I think just the exercise that you shared with you and your co-founders when it comes to, and I love that you definitely mentioned, what is feasible, just given kind of all the other things that we have going on and what's the impact. I think that exercise is really great. And it's definitely something that I'm going to remember as I kind of think about, what just next steps in general, like how much time can I commit to things and what do I want to get out of this? What kind of impact do I want to have? So exactly. I love that. We do have a question from the audience that I want to get to, which is, do you have any way for us to volunteer to help with these efforts?
So amazing.
Yeah, let's get this group plugged in.
Yes. So the first step would be to join our community. And so you can head to our website. It's theahc.org. Can I put it in the chat?
We could have Ansley put it in the chat.
Okay. It's theahc.org. That's our website, and you can click on the link to join us. So there you'll join the community. But if you want to send me an email as well, can also set up a conversation to see how you want to get involved. So we have basically three groups. And so we have one group that focuses on community efforts. So like Agora, the in-person meetups, collaborations, this group is responsible for working on that. Then we have one group that is focused on podcast, and then another group that's focused on our content. So creating the Your Path, the framework for company building. But again, like I said, we definitely need people to help with fundraising and growth. So my email is just my first name last name @theahc.org. So if you want to shoot me an email there, would love to have more people on board.
That is awesome. Love that there's a rich opportunity at Theia, which is great because it also can provide rich opportunity for all of its members. So I love it. I know we're almost at time, so really just wanted to end the amazing conversation that we've had with one of my favorite questions, which is, do you have any, words of advice, words of wisdom that you want to share with this group? Maybe something that a mentor had given to you that you want to move forward, or anything else that you kind of have learned in your career that you want to share with us all?
One thing I would say is don't be afraid to ask, whether it's
Love that.
asking questions, asking for help, asking for a promotion, like just ask. You have in most situations, I feel like you have nothing to lose, but only to gain. I can't say in every situation, but just ask. I feel like the fear of rejection can be so crippling, and I feel like many women feel that more than men, and I've been guilty of that. And so over the years I've pushed myself to put myself out there and just ask, because honestly in many situations where I thought people would say no, they said yes. And
Mhm.
so definitely just ask away.
I love that. What a great way to kind of end our discussion. Thank you so, so much for such an amazing conversation. I'm so excited to see, what you and Thea are building, how it's going to continue to grow. Really, really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today.
Thank you so much, and thank you for everyone who stopped by to listen.
Yeah. Well, wanted to also thank our sponsors for sponsoring this amazing conversation with Shabnam. Also wanted to let you all know about our next session. Please be sure to join us next Wednesday. Wanted to give one last huge shout out to our guest. And thank you everyone for stopping by. We will see you next Wednesday. Bye, everyone.